Okay, we're streaming.
Oh, assalamu alaikum.
Taha, can you update the link?
Yeah, I'm about to do that right now.
That's awkward. Mahdi is asking to join when he is already in here.
He's trying to join with his phone.
That sucks.
So there's two of you.
Oh, there's feedback and it hurts my ears.
Okay, how about this? Does this work?
I don't see
That's
the
a lot better. Taha, can you update the link?
Yeah, I'm about to do that right now.
That's awkward. Mahdi is asking to join.
With phones?
Mine. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That was mine. Mahdi, I'm gonna kick the other one.
See it yet? I don't know what's tweaking.
No, don't kick out the other one. That's the only way I can see all you guys at the same time.
Okay, that's cool.
I can't find episode 9.
Oh, you're famous.
Does she have Zoom?
Oh, that's awkward.
Yo, where's episode 9? I don't have the link. Can you send the link on the Telegram?
Taha, it's literally right on top. If he says live on YouTube, just copy streaming link.
Bro, I accidentally just crushed my Core Academy box, bro.
Oh,
Yeah, it was really sweet. What's Brother Amir gonna say now?
I don't know.
I think I was gonna add something because I watched some of the episodes from YouTube. I feel like when you first begin them, like it's awkward because like we're just talking like this, right? And so nobody knows what's going on. So we should introduce something at the beginning.
I think this is something to discuss after the call.
I don't know what
Audio is better though. I don't. Do you teach your phone?
what did you guys eat
Yeah, I'm on my
for dinner today? That's what I want to know. Real questions.
Oh, Amna's not here. I'll wait until she comes. I gotta tell her.
Oh, QN's here. He disagrees. Why is he disagreeing with us already?
We're live? Oh, shit.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're already live.
Okay, the live is updated. The link is
how's it
updated.
going?
So Nadia was asking what we all had for far today. I wanted to let you know my mom made biryani again, but this time it was with lamb.
That's not here.
Is she asking all of us or?
That's
sure.
nice.
What was that?
That
me.
wasn't me.
That was me. My bad.
I didn't like that.
Nadia, are you gonna post on the story or do you want me to?
That's all you do.
Oh, my mom made biryani.
Not that.
I'm taking L after L today, bro. Unfortunately.
That is my face. There we go.
Okay,
We're missing someone, but we're not, right?
No, we're good. We're missing Qari sub, but yeah, Qari sub is here in the chat in spirit.
Ask her to do this.
Biryani over everything. This is false information. Mensef is better than.
Ooh. Nadia, you're literally
Chat.
making all your statements false. By the way.
Bro, my face is so red right now. Oh my gosh. What are we waiting for? Are we just figuring it out?
I think we're just waiting for a few more views to hop on.
Cool. Yeah.
How's everyone doing? That's
Go share it with your aunties and aunties
yeah, share it on those WhatsApp
and
groups.
uncles. Man, I said aunties.
Ani, bro.
Yeah, what's an Ani, bro? Giannis.
Yeah, remember that?
This dude called my cousin Giannis, bro. She said it in like a quiet voice so she wouldn't hear. She's like, yeah, Giannis, that's a good point. And then his name is Yanni, bro.
Listen, people should call him Giannis.
Oh my gosh.
Also, I gotta agree, Mensef isn't that great, in my opinion.
What? Okay, Yumna, we were just okay. Yumna's mom made us the best mensef ever, dude, and now she's attacking the mensef dish. Like, bro, come on, are you serious? Mensef is a legendary
I
dish.
think mensef is overrated. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of agree.
Yo,
I mean, it's good, but it's not the best like dish.
Fatih hummus, whatever it's called, the hummus lasagna slaps. That's how I describe it. Hummus lasagna.
Did you hear me talking about the biryani?
Look at QN, bro. He's like biryani, mensef all day. Wow.
Biryani over Mensef, Mahdi.
Big
I kind of agree.
I know, but I know I'm saying.
Mustafa said.
Whoa, the first thing I heard in this section. I don't think I can handle this video. Mustafa said he can't handle this video because you guys saying men stuff isn't good or.
Mehdi,
I think we all need to chill.
you need to type from the Ramadan radio chat, which is better, Mensaf or biryani.
Okay, I'll put it right now.
Okay,
Wait, Yuan, I'm always say this. Hydro biryani is not all that. Bye.
Bro, you're tripping. I'm not even Desi, and I'm telling you straight up, Hydro biryani.
I'm Pakistani, and I'm gonna say Hyderabadi biryani is.
No, the way it's cooked is not good. Just straight up.
Biryani is subpar anyways.
And mo biryani sucks. It's not real Pakistani biryani. Please don't ever call it that.
Okay, so what's
Hey.
My mom.
Okay, sure. I'm not disrespecting your mom because your mom's a legend, but I'll
Have
still,
a biryani contest. All of us make our dishes of biryani, then we all taste
I'm
it.
down. You guys want chicken,
Biryani,
beef,
Wait,
shrimp,
chicken.
fish?
Do not say fish. I
hold-
can handle this.
on the-
I think I need to sign off.
Oh, Fatih Hamad. Sorry, Iman. It slaps regardless.
Yo, Nadia, can you copy the link from the YouTube and send it to the WhatsApp group that we're in? Because I can't, because I'm on my phone.
Which WhatsApp group? Pineapple on pizza is greater than Mensaf. Oh my God, Zahra. That's
Not bad.
Zahra Zazayuri.
Hey, pineapple and jalapeno on pizza is a fire duo.
That's disgusting.
I
Okay,
could disagree.
no, you're
I
just
don't trust your taste buds anymore.
pineapple pizza is fire, but
Yo, is that Jenna Zaybek? Girl,
bro,
facts.
All right, guys. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Jazakallah khair for hopping on. It looks like we're just about at 30 viewers right now. If you guys can like, subscribe, and share this link to people if you on like different group chats and stuff like that, we'd really appreciate it. So the topic for today is a little vague. I don't think it was like clearly like you could really clearly get it from the thing. There's just a lot of I got from the flyer, and it's called Agree to Disagree. And basically what we're trying to tackle or talk about is the sensitive culture that's kind of apparent nowadays. A lot of us we're a little scared to give criticism because people tend to overdo it. They take it as judgment a lot of times. A lot of times we try, people actually don't even know how to give criticism sometimes. You'll see those call outs on social media and stuff like that, which is so bogus and completely unrespectful and different things like that. So that's kind of what we want to address, and a few other things as well. So just to hop in real quick, the first question of the day is, what are the different types of misconceptions that kind of go along with sensitivity? What do people kind of get sensitive about? What types of different things can go along with that? Yeah.
So when it comes to talking about sensitivity, I feel like just when I got to college, it started becoming this bad thing. Not even just being sensitive, just having emotions. It's no, you have to turn it off, just be entirely rational. That's what I found. And that's super harmful because we're human beings. We have both. We are able to be rational, but we can allow our emotions to not overtake us, but to guide us. So when people say don't be sensitive, I get a little irritated about that because you should be sensitive, just not overly sensitive.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Amna, go ahead.
No, go for it.
No, dude, wallahi, you shall go.
Oh my
okay, well,
God.
Yikes. So I just want to delve into, and I'm gonna just go straight into the big stuff right away. Roasting culture. Yo, I'm sorry, I get really heated about it. I'm sure everyone here has seen that in our own individual chats. But I think a huge misconception with oversensitivity is that if someone roasts if someone roasts you and so let's say it's a joke or something, it could be something stupid yo, your nose is too big, or your eyebrows are shaped weird, or whatever it may be, if you tell them, yo, that was kind of bogus, let's not do that, they're like, bro, stop being sensitive. Okay, that's not oversensitivity. Okay, so roasting culture is basically, for those who don't know, it's this idea that you either have to be cool or to fit in. You either have to roast someone or you have to be compliant to receive a roast. And it's very stupid and detrimental, especially in our generation, because if you're the one giving the roast to be funny, that means you're demeaning someone else in the process. And if you're receiving the roast and being compliant, like to be cool and chill, that means you're being numb, which isn't something that we're supposed to be anyways. It's like, oh yeah, you can make fun of me whatever you want, nothing offends me. That's not an okay mentality to have either. And at the same time, stepping on someone else to fit in isn't cool. Now, don't get me wrong. I just want to say there are people who have a teasing personality trait where you know that when they're teasing or joking, it's completely sincere and you don't get offended or anything because it's just who they are. But to be honest, out of the like abundance of people I know, I can really only think of 3 or 4 people who have that quality in them. Unfortunately, you grow up and you're kind of put into this roasting culture. Like, if you guys are not aware yet, and I've said this in every podcast and live, I went to Saddam school. It's a huge thing, roasting culture there. Like, their humor is making fun of someone else. And I didn't realize how bad it was until I got out of it. And I realized I can't roast because I just sound mean and I'm offending someone else in the process. You know, like, if you can't take a roast or if you can't take that, that doesn't mean you're oversensitive. You shouldn't feel forced to take it to fit in either. And you shouldn't have to do it to fit in either. You know what I'm saying? Like, this whole idea that you have to step on someone else and make fun of someone's insecurities so you can be the funny one is stupid, in my opinion. And the whole idea that you have to be okay with someone talking down on you so you can be cool is even stupider. So I think a huge part of oversensitivity and its misconceptions comes off of this whole like, yeah, bro, we got to make fun of each other to be cool. No, bro, the Prophet Muhammad SAW made everyone laugh and everything, and he never made fun of a single person. Like, I'm funny and I don't make fun of people. At least I think I'm funny. I think people on this chat, specifically Nadia, would disagree. But, you know, like, I'm funny, you know, and alhamdulillah, I'm even if I do, you know, I'm sorry if I have offended anyone, just throwing that out there. I don't know why I did this, but on the off chance, you know, it just, you don't have to make fun of someone to be funny, and you don't have to be okay with someone making fun of you to fit in. So please don't forget that, because people suck.
Yeah, man. Like, I think you pretty much stated everything that I could state. But dude, this roasting culture is such a big problem, man, especially within the Muslim community. Like, I think it exists outside of the Muslim community, but for some reason it exists even more so within the Muslim community, man. Like, within our like friend circles, like, just people just put each other down always in every little thing. People are putting each other down, and part of it just stems from an ignorance of like, I'm just going to say this and the person's not going to get offended, or assuming that the person's not going to get offended. Once you make that assumption, I think it's a losing game, right? Like, you can't make the assumption that the other person is not going to get offended. You have to be on the safe side, and you have to make the assumption that whatever you say, the person is going to take it to heart, right? Like, at least that's personally how I like to hold myself. If you make the assumption that someone is not going to get offended and you say something that's extremely offensive, they might hold it in their heart against you forever. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I know I'm a person who, I would say, like, I'm an easy target. Like, people like to make fun of me, whatever the case may be. Like, it's funny, I accept it, it's whatever. But sometimes people take it overboard and they don't realize that, hey man, like, this is getting to a point where it's not funny anymore and it's actually like offensive. But for me personally, I would never say that. I would never like outright be, unless it was someone who's really close to me, then I'd call them out. I'd be like, yo, like, just because you're my friend, I'm gonna tell you straight up, what you said offended me. But in other situations, I'm not gonna call it out. I'll just like sort of, unfortunately, like, it'll be something that's stuck in the back of my head.
Did either freeze for everyone, or was that just?
Yeah, he did freeze. You froze.
You said in my head and then you froze.
It's like stuck like this for like.
It's getting so much fire that YouTube can handle it now.
Am I still frozen?
No, you're good.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot. I lost my train of thought. But I guess I just end with one last thing. Like, right now during Core Academy, you were learning about something. Qari Noman, I am not referring to you at all. You are my elder and someone that I respect greatly. And yes, you roast me, but I can handle your roast because I also roast you in return. So I think both of us have that equally. But what I was going to say is, during Core Academy, like my Core Academy classmates, we've been learning about Tafsir Surah Al-Hujurat, a surah in the Quran, which talks about just how important the rights of the other Muslim are upon you. Like, man, the right is so important. Like, you shouldn't ever hurt their feelings or speak to them in an ill manner. But yeah, so sorry if I went on a rant.
Just to cap off that roasting culture roasting like topic, I just wanted to add on to like that. Zoya inside the chat said, I think it really depends on the context of the roast and the relationship with the person. If I am getting roasted by a person I have talked to once or twice, like hell no. Like I understand that, and that like actually like it makes sense. And you kind of touched on that too, Nadia. But like I feel like in order for you to roast someone, you have to be able first and foremost to be able to take a roast back, right? And even before that, you should think about, am I even close to this person for me to even say these things, right? Have I know this person enough for me to know what the ins and outs are, like, or what do they get triggered by? You know, they might get triggered by things that I say. So am I going to talk about these things? But now, more importantly, we're talking about sensitivity, right? If you're roasting somebody, you should be able to get roasted, right? So if you're being sensitive about what other people are saying, I feel like that's very wrong of you to like actually, trigger somebody to say so. And if I want to say the last thing is, if you know how Qari Noman was talking about, oh man, he's attacking me, and like you were just talking about how you guys have a good relationship. I think a good relationship also means that you can joke with somebody, right? If you can joke with somebody, that just like means that you're so much closer. It doesn't mean necessarily so much closer to them, but like that just means that you guys are at a level where you guys can understand each other more, better, and you guys are at a higher level of like friendship.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Another angle I kind of want to address in this terms of this sensitivity and stuff, it kind of hits home with me because I'm a dude, but it's a toxic masculinity. And, it's interesting because a lot of guys are kind of like trained to like not show their emotions, and it's kind of sad. It kind of gets into roasting culture as well, because I feel like the roasting culture is more common in guys where they'll just sit in a circle and just like throw roasts at each other, like come at people's lives. Like I swear I've heard roasts of people that I wouldn't even wish upon like my worst enemy, but like these dudes are best friends. Like they talk every day, and it's like, man, like how desensitized have you gone to like to these topics? And it's to the point where these people, like guys, feel like they can't like open up, they can't be sensitive around people, and it's extremely problematic because there's parts of this deen that require sensitivity, and they require like to show emotion, to have a soft heart, and it's difficult to do that when we're trained to not, and a lot of times that same like toxic masculinity is like we're forcing that like unsensitiveness on other people as well. Like, don't be so sensitive. Like, there's no need to do that. Like, it's just like it's a cycle that's going and going, and it's just not like there's no progress. Like, there's no gain. Like, nothing. We're not doing anything.
I think you bring up a really good point, Taha. Something that I wanted to kind of bounce off of that is like for girls, I feel like it's for guys, like obviously the emotion aspect is really like a big thing, but I feel like for girls, we kind of put each other down sometimes and just like nitpick about specific things that we think like are not perfect in each other, which can really create like a toxic environment in a similar fashion. But something that I wanted to kind of go off of what Nadia was saying about just having like a connection with Qari Noman and like understanding each other, and in that sense, like you're not necessarily like nobody is like wrong in the situation to making those remarks. It's just like a playful sort of relationship. I think that, obviously on the flip side, like a lot of people who might not necessarily like understand somebody's humor might, take it in the wrong way. Exactly like Nadia was saying about like holding it against that person for a long time and not being able to communicate that. And I think that that can kind of stem from, personal experience or maybe like their upbringing. And obviously you might not like know that just from like, I don't know, from the surface, it might not seem that way. It might seem like a joke, but to them, it could seem like something bigger.
No, I agree with what, just want to let you guys know, Mahdi is switching his device, which is why he disappeared for a second, but he'll be back soon, inshallah, don't worry. Ammonia, nice. But I just wanted to touch on, touch on very briefly. So I 100% agree with toxic masculinity and all that thing, and all of that thing that didn't make any sense, and all of that because I have noticed that a lot, even with like as a girl, if a guy says something like ruins my whole entire like bloodline by insulting me, and I'm like, that was a bit uncalled for. He's like, bro, you're just being sensitive. Like that's a form of toxic masculinity, bro. Like you can't just sit here and then have like the most detrimental insults or think that like your humor roasting is a form of humor, because low key it's not. Like insulting someone isn't a form of humor. Just
I'm gonna like just stop you for a second. I'm not gonna say that, I don't think that what you're saying right there, that's not toxic masculinity, because I think girls can be just as guilty of doing that. Like I've heard girls say something that was extremely damaging, you know, and extremely insensitive, but they're like, oh, don't be so sensitive. I don't think that's toxic masculinity. That's just not being careful with how you speak to people, you know?
No, that's true. I agree. It's just something I feel like I've noticed more with guys. And like I was just saying it's not just guys against guys, it's also guys with girls. And it is girls with guys too, and girls with girls too. Like it's just people in general do that. I think it's just toxicity in general. Like is what it is. And that's true. Like the girls do that unfortunately a lot. Like, you know, and sometimes it's, you know, whatever, that's a different topic. But what I wanted to touch on mostly was like entitlement kind of. So I feel like a sense of oversensitivity comes off of a branch of entitlement. And what I mean by that is like what I've noticed is with what I've experienced with people who are, you know, who tend to be more on the sensitive side, is that let's say someone texts me and I'm either not responding or whatever it may be. I don't know why he made his name Imam Mahdi, but Imam Mahdi is he? One second. Hi Mahdi. Okay, he's connecting. But one thing I've noticed is that back to the example I was saying, is that someone will text me and then I won't respond for a few hours because I'm either doing something or whatever it may be, and they respond back because they're offended I didn't respond. And I always took that as a sort of sensitivity, because they would genuinely get mad if they didn't get my time or my attention or whatever it may be. And it was in a way a sense of entitlement. And I understand that, like, you know, you have friends, and like if we are close friends, I want you to tell me when I've insulted you in that way or form. Like I get it. But there are people who I'm not that close with, or who I don't really have that kind of relationship with, and they have that sense of entitlement where it's like, hey, like you have to give me your time, you have to give me your attention, how dare you go out without me, and things like that, you know. And I feel like that kind of ties into oversensitivity. But I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking that wrong. But I don't know. I don't know.
I completely agree with that, actually. I mean, there's so many people that actually do get like offended by, why didn't you invite me? Like, to me, like, honestly, like I'm subject to that too. As a younger Mahdi, like I always used to be like very sensitive to why I wasn't invited to specific things. But as I grew older, I understood that that wasn't like really the case. Like it doesn't matter whether or not like I'm invited to something. It depends on whether or not the people want me there, right? And if they want you there, they'll invite you. They don't, like too bad. Like so what? Like don't be so like, you don't have to be so sensitive about it. You don't have to be like, to me it's like a childish trait, because I can see my younger self doing that, you know.
It's not even that, but it's like you got to understand that you don't have to push yourself in every situation where others are. Like I think that's a huge thing too. It's like if two people want to hang out, like that's not a big deal. It's not that they're excluding you. It's just that they just want to have their own time, you know? Like people don't really understand that either. You don't have to be a part of everything. It's kind of basically what I'm saying. And that sounds brutal. I don't mean to be brutal. So if I've offended you, I'm sorry, but it's true. Like you got to understand that some people just want to be with one person or one or two people just because they're more comfortable around them. And there's nothing wrong with that either, you know?
Right.
It's also, I was just gonna mention something very quickly. Just kind of going off of that, it's that some people kind of have this mentality, sometimes not always, that the world kind of revolves around them, and they might think like, okay, like she's not messaging me back, like she must think XYZ about me, or they start like making these assumptions and, you know, jumping to conclusions, just going off of what Amna was saying. So I think it's important to recognize that there's always something going on in the background, and everything isn't just about like one person.
I mean, these are so important points to hit. I love what you said, Hiba, but I want to just let everybody know that we are gonna, like, this is like we said, this is an unfiltered chat. Like we always label ourselves as unfiltered. So we're gonna say things that people might not agree with, right? But if you don't agree with something, like by all means, like share it with us on YouTube, like on the chat, like just like type up something that why you don't agree with it, and what you think, right? So we can have a different perspective on things. We might be wrong, right? We might have our specific views on something. You might have your view on it, but the fact of the matter is we're trying to give our view on sensitive culture and how we experience it in our society and around us.
Yeah, and I think like a big Actually, I think this is something that we plan on discussing in the future, so I won't address this. But I did want to address a comment that I've seen here somewhere. It was by Ishma, I believe I pronounced her name correctly. She said, growing up with two brothers and majority male cousins, I was always roasted and then expected to take it and not react, which eventually would build up and it was not very emotionally healthy for me. First of all, I'm sorry you had to go through that, Ishma. That sucks, dude. And as someone who was raised with two brothers, sometimes it can get a little bit violent and a little bit, words can be thrown out there that are extremely hurtful. And a lot of times people don't realize just the impact that those words have on people. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to speak much because I know we've been beating up the dead horse, but I think there should be guidelines when you want to roast someone or when you want to joke around with someone. Like I said initially, first and foremost, don't make the assumption that the person is not going to get offended. Like if you're gonna make fun of someone's like physical attributes and physical features, like, dude, that's something that I feel like is out of the question, especially if someone like has some deficiency in them or whatever, and then you focus on that, like, bro, that's super hurtful and extremely upsetting. And I don't think people realize that now, this day and age. So just something to keep in mind, like, please, be classy in like how you roast people. I know it sounds like counterintuitive, but like if you want to roast people and joke around with people, be classy about it. Do it with some finesse, like do it in a way that it won't hurt them. And if you even have the slight inclination that you hurt this individual, apologize. There's absolutely nothing wrong with apologizing. I know a lot of people in this chat right now who I'm not going to call out their names, but like there were times when I would like say something to them that was joking or whatever, and I felt that it hurt them or whatever the case may be. So I would go and apologize, even if it wasn't that bad, if it wasn't that big of a deal. It's better to be safe than sorry, and it's better to protect someone's feelings and emotions than to hurt them. So that's the last thing I wanted to say.
Absolutely. I am so happy you mentioned that. And mashallah, actually, Nadia, I have to say this, I have to give props to you about this, is that sometimes like this has happened between us where if we might say something to each other, we're like, bro, we shouldn't have said that. And we'll just like quickly text, we're like, I'm so sorry. I probably just like completely ruined your day, blah, blah, blah. So, and I think everyone in this chat has that quality, which is a really hard thing to do because it's tying back to something what Amna says, it comes with that sense of entitlement. And when we roast people, we have to realize that when it comes to, or just say a comment about someone, or when we're speaking to people, we need to realize that our words do affect them. And even if they're not showing it on the outside, it might be internally affecting it. And just kind of going off that comment that Ishma, right? Was that the person who said that? What I start thinking about is that when you are a child and when you have parents who they bring you up in a roasting culture, that's not healthy for you, because the way that your parents or your siblings are treating you, that's how you're going to start treating other people for the rest of your lives. So I think this is very important to realize that when we inshallah become parents, or if we have younger siblings, that we need to be very, very careful on how we interact with them, because any roast, any teasing, anything that we say to them, it can affect them in the future, and it can affect their interactions with other people in the future.
I like the clapping thing you just added in respect. One thing I just want to do that. One thing I just want to add is that like I understand like every now and then someone, especially in a group of friends, someone's gonna crack a joke about someone. Like if you're wearing like a printed scarf, thing, be like, yo, why look like a shower curtain? Or like you're wearing plaid, why look like a picnic paper? Like that stuff is fine, but the issue, I think the biggest problem stems is that one person will like crack the joke and then everyone and their mom runs with it for the rest of the year. And it's like, bro, stop. Like the joke was cracked once. You don't have to keep calling them a shower curtain for 7 months straight. The joke died, like I just feel like that's something I need to add, is that, yeah, like quick roast every now and then, because obviously like Zoya just said, there's an art to it. But you can't just keep taking that one joke and consistently going with it. Like it gets old and eventually it gets annoying, and eventually it might even get to the person. So you need to I think that's a big thing, is having that balance between like understanding when to and when not to continue a joke. Sometimes you just die, to be honest.
Like knowing your limits and stuff. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Thank you for calling me a shower curtain. Not
you don't look like a shower curtain. You were a beautiful shower curtain.
Thank you.
Kind of going off of that, like exactly what Amna said, I agree 100%. Like you have to know your limits. Like I remember somebody in high school used to call me a towel head like every day, and I like at some point I was just like, okay, like this is too much, and I had to confront them. Mind you, like this person was Muslim too. It was really sad. I had to tell them like it's really sad when that comes from like the Muslim community. You know, it's not even like non-Muslims at that point. I know we've all heard like that saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words can never hurt me. But like I feel like we all know that's not really true. Like words really can, you know, get deep and like you really feel them, and they can really affect the person. And I can't remember who mentioned it earlier, but that can honestly affect the way that you interact with people, the way that you like communicate as well, like in the future. So it's not just something that affects like your emotional well-being, but also your emotional like intelligence and just your interactions with others.
Definitely. I mean, look, I just want to recognize something, man. Nadia is already looking like a doctor. MashaAllah. Look at him, the white coat. Oh my God.
This is not a white coat, G. This is a orange, not an orange, like beige shirt.
It doesn't look
do you guys see white? Can you guys see white?
I don't see color.
Bro, you just look like you fit to be a doctor.
Done with you on that.
MashaAllah, you fit to be a doctor. Anyways, just going off the question, which is like how to take into account respectfully, like and give criticism to people. I just want to refer something in the comments, which was said by Jannah Hamdan. It said, "I steadily get roasted by my older brother, but when I relate and try to roast him, he gets offended." Shake my head. Okay, the first thing is like as I mentioned before, like if you want to roast somebody, you have to be able to get roasted, right? But now that doesn't mean when you roast somebody back, you start bashing them, right? If you're bashing somebody like on like a roast after roast, or like just like saying one joke after another, and like not giving like, so say somebody gives a joke about you and they make a joke about what you're doing, like you're playing with something and with your hands, like, oh, they make a joke about it, right? And then you go ahead and you roast them on their physical appearance and how they look, and then keep on talking about like, you know, like making offensive like remarks. I feel like you're the one that took it offensively, and you're taking it to a whole nother level. Like you're not roasting them at that point, but you're offending them, and you're trying to like say stuff, other stuff, you know, like you're trying to one up them in a way, right? But if they're giving you a roast in a physical, like a physical appearance, and you do the same, like I feel like they shouldn't be sensitive to that.
I agree, man.
One thing I kind of want to bring up in terms of roasting and like having finesse and doing it. There was a story of the Prophet ﷺ that an old lady actually approached him, and she was like, I don't remember the full story, but at one point she asked the question. She was like, "Will there be old people in Jannah?" She was like, "No." Like he said, "No, there's not going to be any old people in Jannah," which is like a cute like finesse kind of way to like kind of mess with her and stuff like that. And it's like creative, because in Jannah we're all going to be young. We're all going to be of our like prime age, like mid to late 20s. So it was just a joke that he was making, and he did it with finesse. I just wanted to bring that up before we transition into the next topic. What comes with a lot of sensitivity is people being completely unable to give proper criticism. And it's probably the biggest problem, I think, with it. A lot of times we give criticism by judging people, calling them out on social media. I think that's like, that bothers me the most, man. Like someone like does something or wears the hijab the wrong way or something like that, or like wears it in a specific way, and then people get like, they call out about it, like call them out about that, like that issue, like openly in front of everybody. Like a random person, like they don't even know, like comes up and attacks them, like their iman, and like does takfir of them and stuff like that. And it's completely uncalled for, and that's just not the way criticism should be given. So like how should it be given? Like how do we do it respectfully?
So just, you mentioned the hijab. So I've talked about this many times, and I was like trying to dress more modestly. I have heard God knows what. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone has seen or heard of these certain events happening. And it got to a point where I used to start, I was bottling it inside me for a while, and then I used to lash out. But then someone once told me, it's like, you can't control what other people do. You can only control how you are going to react. So if they're going to be rude and obnoxious and judgmental, you don't need to do the same thing. You don't need to stoop that low. As for giving criticism, it's one of those things where you have to have a you and me conversation, and you have to always make sure you're talking about the situation and you're not talking about the person. You're not saying like, oh, well, you are haram or whatever it is. It's like, this thing that you're doing, it concerns me. This is what I've noticed. This is how I feel. How about we have a conversation about this and we can work on this together, you know, kind of bring that sense of community in. Because if you don't do that and then you call someone out, there is no way in hell. I mean, I just kind of want people to interact on the chat. I mean, what has there ever been a time when someone's giving you genuine advice? It's good advice, but the way that they're saying it to you is so offensive, you don't even want to follow it in the first place, even though you know in your heart is right, right? So, and there's one last thing I'm going to wrap up, I swear, and I'm going to shut up. There's this one a book I'm reading, and I think if you guys, it's, okay, I read a lot, you guys, I'm sorry. Great book. It's huge. It's called The Laws of Human Nature. And the way that I picked it up, because it was actually recommended to me, because I am a very sensitive person. I can admit that 100%. And I did not know how to control my emotions very well. And reading this book has helped me a lot, because when you start understanding human nature, you can understand how to interact with human nature, if that makes sense. So I'm going to read the small passage and then I'm going to shut up, I promise. So it's an analogy that the Greeks had, and it says it's about a horse and a rider. So it says the horse is our emotional nature continually impelling us to move. This horse has tremendous energy and power, but without a rider, it cannot be guided. It is wild, subject to predators, and continually heading into trouble. The rider is our thinking self. Throughout training and practice, it holds the reins and guides the horse, transforming this powerful animal energy into something productive. The one without the other is useless. Without the rider, no directed movement or purpose. Without the horse, no energy, no power. In most people, the horse dominates and the rider is weak. In some people, the rider is too strong, holds the reins too tightly, and is afraid to occasionally let the animal go into a gallop. The horse and rider must work together. This means we consider our actions beforehand. We bring as much thinking as possible to a situation before we make a decision. But once we decide what to do, we loosen the reins and enter action with boldness and a spirit of adventure. Instead of being slaves to this energy, we channel it. That is the essence of rationality. Done.
That was a banging passage. We're gonna put that book inshallah on our highlights.
It's also an audio book. It's amazing.
We're also added to the comments. I don't know how Hiba does it, bro. She's tech savvy. YouTube's not. I'm just challenged when it comes to YouTube.
It's all good. It'll be in the description below later.
So I just want to kind of I think a big thing with giving criticism is, I remember I hear this so much, and I always say this is so doesn't make any sense. Is people are like, yo, I'm not being mean, I'm just being honest. No, bro, you don't have to be rude when you're giving your criticism. Like, people neglect that fact that you don't have to be unnecessarily rude or drop bogus comments when someone is asking for your help or advice. That's the last thing they want to hear. I do agree that you should be honest, but you don't have to be brutally honest. Like, those two don't go hand in hand, and people kind of neglect that fact. And then on like a kind of a side note, because Nawal mentioned this, that if you call out someone, do it in private in a respectful way instead of humiliating the person in front of others. I have had personal experiences, TBT, with when I was on like Twitter and like famous, just kidding, only had like 100 followers. But like, I would see people who I knew, you know, with whatever, like liking inappropriate stuff, posting, or things that just weren't okay. And I remember like people would talk so much about them behind their back, and I would just DM the person, and I was like, yo, just like, so like, first you always gotta start with, hey, sorry, I just want to say, like, saying this with a genuine heart. Like, you make sure you emphasize that and just tell them, hey, like, A, B, C, D, I don't really think it was okay. Like, the reason I DM'd you privately is because I didn't want to say anything in public, but I also want to save your reputation and like, just whatever, you know, like, there's so many ways to go around them, just messaging them privately. And subhanAllah, you'd be surprised, like, some of these people were afraid to approach them because they were too mean, or they were too attitudey, or they were too sassy. They responded so nicely. They're like, thanks for DMing me privately, I really appreciate it. And they took it down, end of story. And after that, actually, we became a lot closer. Like, you don't realize, like, people are scared, or they feel like, oh, why would I DM them private? Let me call them out in public. No, that's not even the way we're supposed to do it in Islam. You are supposed to cover someone else's sins, and Allah will cover your sins on the day of judgment. Does that mean you ignore them, you don't approach them? No, not necessarily. You can approach them privately. And I know last podcast, or the one before, I don't know which one it was, but someone had asked in the comments, how do you know, like, if there's someone who's doing something or not wearing the hijab or whatever it may be, not exactly in the best of ways, and they're kind of preaching it in a way, how do you approach it? I'm always going to say message them privately. Like, even if it's a public rep, whatever it may be, people respond. You'd be surprised how many quote unquote famous people have responded to DMs. Because if you're just genuinely doing it and you make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets them see it, guides them, whatever it may be, they're gonna see it. Like, there's so many ways to do it without calling someone out in public. Because no matter what, I don't care how genuine you think you are in calling someone out in public, when you do that, no one is gonna respond appropriately because it's embarrassing, and they're gonna have to save their face in that manner and defend themselves. So calling someone out in public is gonna have no positive effect whatsoever. Always go to them privately. Like that, if you want to handle with someone in that way, just slide in the DMs, bro. No one's gonna take it wrong. Just do it right and you'll be fine.
Well, just to add on to what Amna said, well, someone said it in the chat right here. I believe her name is Aida. She said the Prophet ﷺ says, this is a hadith in Arabic, I'll say the Arabic. The Prophet ﷺ said, من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. Whoever believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day should say something good or remain silent. We have this really like weird culture where we feel the need to always correct people for things that may not even be important. Like Amna said, like, yeah, feel like if you see something wrong, like message the individual, whatever the case may be. And I agree with that to an extent. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with minding your own business too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand this need, this burning need for people. And I don't want to say like social justice warriors because that has a negative connotation, but everyone this day and age feels the need to correct everyone else on their mistake. Like, bro, just mind your own business, work on yourself. If something is so egregious, like something is so just bad, and like if someone's posting like haram things that is just like damaging making your fast break or something like that, then yeah, I understand why you feel the need to message that person and be like, hey, like you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. But if it's not egregious and like, if it's just someone doing something stupid, let them, like, it's none of your business at the end of the day. That's one thing that I want to talk about. And the other thing is, there's an aspect of emotional intelligence that we all need to develop. And Taha actually, I don't know if Taha wants to speak on this, but he showed me a video by Mikaeel Smith. He's talking about the emotional intelligence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had incredible emotional intelligence. You know what I'm saying? Like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would see a child crying and he would stop the child and he would ask the child how you're doing, et cetera, et cetera. Like he would make sure the child is doing all right. So emotional intelligence is key. It's an art. Giving constructive criticism is an art. Someone actually texted me the other day and they're like, hey, like, how do I give someone criticism without sounding harsh or without sounding rude? Well, my personal advice is preface the constructive criticism with something nice. Be like, hey man, like I really enjoyed this, and this, but I feel like maybe you could have done this differently, right? And then after that, it doesn't hurt to also compliment that, end with the compliment as well. You know what I'm saying? So it's important to have style. It's important to have, it's important to be smart about how you give constructive criticism. And the most important thing is sit down and think to yourself, why am I giving this constructive criticism in the first place? Like, look at your intentions. Am I giving constructive criticism to sound smart? Am I giving constructive criticism to sound cool? Or am I giving constructive criticism because I genuinely care about this individual and I want them to live a better life? So I think that's also an important aspect of it too.
So I don't know if Mehdi's adding this or if I'm adding this. I think you? Me? I don't know where you're pointing.
All you.
Oh.
Go off this. Go off.
I'm gonna change my name from Amna the OG Jab to Go Off Sis again. A quick thing I want to add about what Nadia has said in the beginning about how, like the hadith that I believe it's Aida who said, the Prophet said, whoever believes in Allah on the last day should say something good or remain silent. And I definitely agree. Like there's this, I don't know who the Imam is, but someone has asked him like, oh, how do you not see all the bad people are doing or whatever it may be? And he said, I'm too busy looking at my own flaws to notice somebody else's. And I think that's a huge part of this whole like social justice warrior, whatever the term is now, is I agree. Like if someone's doing something wildly inappropriate or whatever it may be, there's no harm in DMing them if you can do it and if you're not comfortable, and also if you know they're not going to take it bad. But at the end of the day, like there's only so much good you can do, because you should also be focusing on yourself. Like if you see, it's different when someone asks you for criticism and if you give it to them without their consent, kind of, like if I'm asking you, yo, what are some critiques you can give me? Like, I expect you to be like, yeah, this, whatever. But if you're not asking for it and I'm still giving you unnecessarily unwanted criticism, I don't know. I feel like I definitely agree that there is this limitation that Nadia had mentioned, where sometimes it is better to just remain silent if it's going to do more harm than good. So just tossing that out there like a salad, because you toss a salad.
I don't know if Mahdi had something to say.
Go ahead.
before-
I'm just gonna wait.
So I just wanted to kind of address, I guess kind of sum up like what everybody was saying, because you guys made some really amazing points, mashallah. But I think that a lot of it can kind of stem from how people don't really think before they speak. And I don't know if somebody might have already touched on this. I think it was Nadia, but it can be kind of hard. But if you take those few seconds to just think about, like Nadia mentioned, like the reason why you're saying it, but also like what you're about to say, don't just like spit out words that you're not even filtering. I feel like that's just like really important to kind of like address. And also the fact that you guys could, like, already touched on this, but just like saying things in the right way. It's how you say it, not what you say. Because like, two people can get the same exact criticism, but one person can just deliver it in like a better fashion, and like it could come off in a better way, more sincere, more like they just say it more carefully. And then the person who's like receiving the criticism can honestly like take the one that's said in a lighter manner, like more seriously, and they might not have like have a backlash, or they'll just like essentially take the right actions toward it and not just like disregard it because of the way that they were the way that like it was communicated. And somebody mentioned in the chat sarfaraz. I hope I didn't mispronounce that wrong. I don't know. I probably butchered that. I'm really bad.
You're fine. You can just call him Surf too.
Surf. I'm so sorry. I'm the worst at names, if you know.
No. You said it very well, mashallah.
Okay, cool. I probably said it like the whitest way ever. I apologize. But so he said, oftentimes insensitivity comes from a person because they're envious of another person. So their only option is to put the other person down because they can't do anything themselves. And I think that could also relates to something that we were talking about with like the intentions of the person. So they might, kind of bash somebody else because they're jealous of them. I think that's a really, really good point to bring up, Surf. That just goes off of like the reason why they're giving that constructive criticism. So it's important.
So to kind of, Hibla kind of mentioned this already, to help me transition to the next topic. Like how do you, sure, people can give criticism, right? But I'll be honest, a lot of times people still will mess up. And it's still our job to be as strong as we can, even if someone says it incorrectly. So that kind of leads into the question, how do we take criticism? And I think that's on us as well, to be as strong as we can when people are either advising us or criticizing us, because we can't expect people to be textbook criticize 101, perfection all the time. I think we need to be able to be strong. We need to be able to take criticism without feeling like we're getting judged. So yeah, how do we take criticism?
So honestly, what's called, just to start off as a question, I think, to be honest with you, it's so hard to take criticism, right? For me, growing up, honestly, when I was younger, I used to get made fun of all the time, right? I was this chubby little kid in Palestine, right? All the kids used to pick on me. I honestly got bullied at a point where I was in 3rd, 4th grade, maybe in 5th grade, I got bullied. So one day, alhamdulillah, so there's this one kid that we were a kid in my class, we were throwing words at each other. We were just joking around. We were friends, right? And were is the key word, right? He says something, and there's kids around us, and they say they want us to fight, they're instigating, right? So we go ahead and we actually physically fight, and I hurt the kid, right? And what happened was after that, his older brother came up to me, and his older brother came up to me, and his brother was in my brother's class, right? And so he was 3-4 years older than me, he beat me up. And when my brother found out about it, he then kicked, I don't want to, for lack of better words, kicked his butt, right? So after he did that nobody knew my brother. My brother was my brother, right, in that school, which was back home in Palestine. And after that, nobody would mess with me, right? I used to get bullied all the time, and my brother never knew. Nobody in my family knew. I never talked about it. But after that day, when they knew that he was my brother, nobody messed with me. So alhamdulillah for my brother. But I just feel like ever since that I did get bullied, it was so hard for me to take criticism from people because I felt like everybody was attacking me, right? I used to always be called names like fat, like chubby, and stuff that I really didn't like at all. When somebody would look at me like, oh, why are you eating that? Haven't you had enough? Or, they see me and I'm fat. So they're like, oh, do you not work out? Or do you not aren't you physically active? Or why don't you go outside more? Or stuff like that. And anytime somebody laughed, whether it was a joke I said or something that was funny that wasn't regarding me, anytime I heard somebody laugh, it hurt me because I thought they were laughing at me, right? Because I was bullied to that point where anybody that laughs, that's it. It's me that they're laughing at. They could be in the other room laughing, and I think it was me, right? So it was so hard for me to transition to take criticism from people because every single time somebody would say something to me or laugh at a joke I said or just laugh at something, I would just think automatically they're laughing at me, right? And they're laughing at something I did. And it wasn't until I started really understanding how people are and really getting to know new people. And not only, my friends telling me that I should be able to take criticism, but my cousins, everybody was telling me you should be more, open to taking these criticisms because it's something that's going to benefit you. And I'm not saying this to harm you in any way. And if somebody laughs, I kind of learned to be stronger about it. And I just wanted to refer to a quote from Prophet ﷺ. He said, the strongest man is the one who, when he gets angry and his face reddens and his heckles rise, is able to defeat his anger, right? I was always angry, always when these things happened. But not until I really calmed down with everything in from inside that I was able to take these criticisms. So I think first and foremost, we have to address that it is really hard to take criticism if you've been very emotionally scarred from people taking, giving you all these physical attacks, and inshallah everybody's able to take criticism, but I just wanted to address that kind of that it is hard, but you are able to do it.
Yo, I just want to say, bro, thanks for sharing that, man. It takes guts to share something like that, bro.
Same.
You're such a beautiful soul, mashallah. I love you, man.
Thank you.
No homo. No homo.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mehdi, for sharing that. I mean, you're right. Sometimes the reason that we get very self-defensive very quickly is because in the past people have bullied us one way or another, or our own family has, and it hurts. And then like you said, God, when you said that when people start laughing, that laugh hurts when they're making fun of you. I mean, I've been on that side too. I mean, oh Lord, I can go on and on about how much I've been picked on, but I kind of wanted to talk to people about how I kind of moved past that, alhamdulillah, for the most part, because I used to let every little thing get to me. And I wasn't outwardly angry, I was angry inside, and I would just start crying about everything, and it was so bad. But for me, it's kind of like what I said before or earlier, is that I have to realize that what people say about me doesn't define who I am. It's what I do, how I interact. That's what's going to define everything. I mean, what you are going to do, what my parents are going to do, what my friends are going to do, or what they're going to say, I honestly have very limited control over that. And there's no point in me trying to exert my energy trying to change something where I can work on myself and change myself and just take everything that's said to me with a grain of salt. I mean, if I'm hearing something a lot from other people that's a criticism, I'm gonna definitely look into it and like, well, a lot of people are saying this, so what is this actually saying about me? Is there some truth in it? But if it's something that you know for your fact that it's just ridiculous, roll it off, man. Pray for them. That's the other thing I wanted to say, is that the people who are the most mean to you are often the ones that are the most insecure and the most miserable on the inside. And those are the people that you should actually make dua for. because they're probably just deflecting their own insecurities onto you and trying to bring you down because that's how miserable they are. And those are the people that need your du'as the most. So that's just one thing I wanted to end off with, because I think one thing that we, again, Amna, I love the fact that you mentioned the entitlement part, because we start feeling entitled to everything. Like, everyone should treat me nicely. Everyone should treat me fairly. Well, that's not what this world is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that we're going to go through hardships no matter what in this world. But what we can do is how we're going to handle these hardships. Are we going to be petty and complain about it and get angry about it? Or are we going to try to be better, make dua for other people, make dua for ourselves, and we can move on and heal together?
Yeah, Nadia, you bring up a really beautiful point. I think that's like really necessary to think about, like how to move on. And thank you guys for sharing, you and Mahdi. I think that's like Nadia said, it takes a lot to share that kind of stuff. But I wanted to address, I feel like we kind of sidetracked in a certain sense to where we're accepting how we react to like roasting. I wanted to kind of address like the critique aspect of it. So some things that I just wanted to kind of mention about how we actually accept criticism of others if it like should apply to us. So for instance, like you guys kind of mentioned, more so of just people like being insecure and you know, just shaming. But something that I want to kind of address is, you know, if somebody does something wrong, or like if there is room for improvement. So something that we should understand is that, you know, people aren't necessarily out there to get us. I think this kind of contrasts with what everybody else was saying earlier, but like, if you think about your family, like at the end of the day, they do have your best interest in mind, especially those that do give you criticism. Like, you know, of course there are some exceptions, but for the most part. And sometimes when you do have that mentality, like Matthew was saying, where, you know, he's like sitting in one room and he thinks that like other people are laughing at him, like you might have that feeling where like the world's kind of like against you in a way, like things are not really in your favor and you're kind of looking at it not in a holistic manner. Right. But in terms of the aspect of like accepting critique and like how to do that, I think it's important to like first recognize what you're lacking, like what your faults are. And that's the only way to honestly like improve and do better, because like if you think about it, then what's the point of like Ramadan if you don't recognize that you have like you're lacking in some aspects of your life, which and of course like you could be doing awesome in other aspects, then you're not going to be able to improve on them, which is essentially what Ramadan is all about, but more in a spiritual sense. So if you can't like admit that you're wrong, or that you need room for improvement in different parts of your life, because of your own ego, because you're arrogant, then that's just gonna, you know, hurt yourself in the long run. You're gonna be missing out on an important opportunity and just some like great advice from a friend or family. So I just have one more thing to go off of that. I know I'm kind of rambling a bit, but I guess like in order to not have an ego and to not be arrogant, you have to like humble yourself in front of that person. So like regardless who it is, like sometimes we might think that people like younger than us might not have something important to say, like they can't critique us even though just like because their age is less. But at the same time though, like I guess it just depends on like the perspective and the fact that you should be able to sit down, self-reflect, think like, okay, let me try to take their account into consideration and to try to like change my habits. And what Nadia was mentioning about sort of hijrat, like your mannerisms with people is really important. Because otherwise, like if you're just arrogant, like not only are you disregarding like the circumstances and what's going on, but you also you kind of think that you're better than that person, and that's why you don't want to take their advice. And we all know the hadith that, this is the last thing I'll say, but we all know the hadith about how anybody who has like an atom's weight or like a mustard seed worth of arrogance is not going to be able to enter Jannah. And so if you can't like humble yourself in front of like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at least that, then you know, like you're not going to be better off. You're just like going down a slippery slope and a rabbit hole.
Hey, Eva, can you do me a favor? Can you just give yourself a pat on the back? Because I can't right now. That was amazing.
I do that in my classes. I clap for other people and then pat for myself.
There we go. Good.
That's my favorite thing in elementary school. Give yourself a pat on the back for saying the alphabet properly. But I just want to say, like, you know, Mahdi and Nadia, like the whole, like, thank you guys for sharing your experiences. And I remember in middle school, I was the same way because I was wildly insecure. I was also a bit on the chubbier side. And I got made fun of by everyone, like family, friends, everyone, every time I went somewhere. So I really did suck. And that took a huge toll on my confidence and everything. And I wasn't able to take any type, I could take like jokes and stuff, sure, but like I would react fine, but at the end of the day, I would sit back and be like, yo, low key, they're right though. And they weren't, you know, it was just a joke, but I always took it that way anyways. So like, thank you guys for sharing that. I just want to say something kind of regarding what Hiba said. So actually in my social psych class this past half semester, I guess, we learned about how, like, why there are people who don't respond appropriately to criticism, actually. So you have this external self-awareness or external self-consciousness. There's a lot of words about self in there, and you have a strong one, but you have a very weak internal one. So that's kind of partially why people find it psychologically very hard to take criticism, because even if on the outside they're super confident, they're super cool, they're super like, yeah, like I'm a boss, on the inside they don't actually feel that way, which is partially why they find it very hard to take any sort of critique. But on the other hand, I think it's also important to remember to take criticism with a grain of salt. So although you may ask a friend, even if you ask a friend like, hey, what are some things, you got to remember at the end of the day, how they see you is not how everyone else sees you, which is why I agree with what Zoya says, is that you need to invest time in your own personal development, because once you start to recognize your own flaws, you can see like habits or patterns that people have mentioned previously to you before. And especially if you're able to reevaluate, if they tell you a situation, you should be able to sit there and reevaluate the situation properly. Okay, A to B, what was my intention? What was going in my head? What did I do? Who could I have potentially offended on the way? Who could I have potentially done this to on the way? By doing that, you'll be able to handle it a lot better, because you're definitely going to be able to acknowledge where they're coming from and what they're saying. But you can also sit back and be like, okay, but that's not exactly, maybe that's not exactly how the story went. Like, you need to be able to reevaluate the criticism yourself, both of those. But in order to do that, you need to be comfortable with yourself. So I think that's really important to remember. I just quickly want to address Surf's question, because if you knew me in high school, you knew this is exactly who I was. So his question was, if someone has been repeatedly made fun of, I feel like they start to feel like they have to be the laughing stock of the group, like it's expected of them, and they start to accept that role. So I don't know how many of you knew me in high school, but I was like a big laughing stock, because like even to this day, people are like, oh, you don't react the way you used to, because apparently my reactions were very funny. And just like going all 4 years in high school, I was just like the laughing stock. You ever want to crack a joke on someone, go to Anna, like she'll take it and she'll probably give you an amusing reaction at the same time, And then I got to college and years passed by, and those same people will still crack those same jokes. And this happened recently where someone cracked, it was like a short jokes were like what I was known for, I guess, or what I was attacked for. Someone cracked it to me and I was like, LMAO, you right? Like, that's what I said. And they're like, oh, you're not responding how you normally do. And I was like, how do I normally respond? And they're like, I don't know, like you usually say something that's like funnier, but you're just kind of accepting it. And I was like, I mean, I don't really feel the need to participate in that kind of conversation anymore, Like, I think, Surf asked, how does one get out of that role and say enough is enough? I think it depends on the person. Like, for me, I was never personally offended by those things. It's just that kind of conversation got old. So how I would react instead, if someone's like, hey man, like, wow, you're so short, like I can't even see you. I was like, bro, same, I can't even see myself. Well, you just roasted yourself. So how's the joke going to continue at that point? I think that's one way to handle it. And also, nice job. But also another way is to just straight up like tell that person, or just like when you put your foot down in front of everyone, honestly, it's embarrassing at times. The first time you do it is going to be embarrassing. I know Nadia mentioned that she had lashed out because she kind of let it build up. I wouldn't recommend lashing out, but I do recommend that if someone is constantly, bringing that up to you, talk to them probably and be like, hey, like I consider you a friend. I know it's funny and stuff, but to be honest, I'm not really a big fan of that, that roast or that tease, whatever it may be. Like, it's offensive. Like, can you please just stop? And if they understand that, they're a good friend. Please remember, if someone can't understand the fact that you have been offended by something they've said, they're probably not a good friend. Like, honestly, I think that says a lot about friendships if someone can't take that you have offended them, because they should not be invalidating how you feel. If they don't understand the situation, that's different. You can talk it out, but your feelings should not be like, you should not have felt invalid for what you felt, because that's just how you felt. Yeah, I think that's one way to handle it. And I know like Nadia wants to say something about this too. So.
I'm gonna pat your back.
You gotta change your name to Go Off Sis now.
Yes, well, I think for me personally, like to answer Sir Froz's question before I delve into what I wanted to talk about, his question was,
how does one get out of the role and say enough is enough?
Right. So for me personally, I've had experience with this. I mean, everyone knows that I tend to get.
Just first what he's talking about. Make sure like that you're. What does he mean by is enough and is enough? What is he?
About the idea of someone being targeted repeatedly as the butt of the joke. So for me personally, I've dealt with this, and I think the biggest, I'm gonna mention a couple of good points, but for me personally, there's nothing better than just straight up talking to this individual and telling them how you feel. And exactly like Emna said, if the person you're telling is not willing to accept that what you said is hurtful to them, or what they've said is hurtful to you rather, then dude, that person, you should not have that person in your life in the first place. So just be clear about how you feel. Don't be scared or feel like you're being too sensitive for standing up for yourself. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But going back to the original question, which was, how do we take criticism? I think this is a very important point. If you know me personally, you know I'm a big fan of constructive criticism. I'm constantly like telling my friends like, yo, what is something I can improve upon? What is something that you think is a flaw in my nature or something I'm deficient in that you think I could improve upon? And I think it's so important to have that. Like most people these days are so closed off to constructive criticism and they just take it the wrong way automatically, whether it's due to some sort of insecurity. I mean, usually that's what it is. Like we're all insecure. As Kanye said, like we all self-conscious. I'm just the first to admit it. You know what I'm saying? So I think if people a lot of times people want to hide the fact that they're insecure rather than accepting the fact that we're all insecure, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And if someone is coming to give you constructive criticism with the hopes of improving you as a person, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, you know? So I think I actually wrote it down here. When taking constructive criticism, the first step is to realize if that person is genuinely trying to give you constructive criticism, or if that person is trying to hurt your feelings, you know? So that's the first part. Like you need to differentiate between these two aspects. You need to think about this. You need to realize, is this person a good friend of mine? Like, I'll give you like a legitimate example, okay? Like Taha is one of my good friends. I love Taha for the sake of Allah. So is Mehdi. So if Taha was to come up to me and be like, hey man, like on Ramadan Radio the other day, you hogged up all the time and you just spoke so much and like you were being mad annoying. I know Taha has the best, obviously maybe he could have phrased it differently. He could have phrased it in a better way, but I know that this is someone who has the best intentions for me. And I know that this is someone I can trust who wants me to become a better person. So I'm willing to accept that constructive criticism. So I guess that's just a simple way, like differentiate whether that individual is trying to be genuine or whether that individual is not. And if that person is not genuinely, doesn't genuinely like care about you or care about making you a better person, again, cut. I mean, that's just how it is for me. But yeah.
Just to go off that question, and actually referring to a question from the chat that was said earlier by Ammar Khan. He had a hashtag Q&A. He said, what are some ways you guys improve and reflect on your character, right? That was the question? Okay, so the question honestly is very, very touchy, because I feel like to improve on your character, you really have to reflect on your personal life. It's a very subjective question, because everybody has to improve in their own ways, right? There's some people that have to improve in ways different than others. And it's very important to kind of take your friends into consideration, right? So the first thing that I would say is that in order to prove yourself, you have to improve what you're surrounded around, who you're surrounded around, especially because I don't know if you guys recall in our earlier episodes, I keep on saying this, I keep on stressing this. Al-mar'u ala dini khalilihi. Everybody is like, they're literally a reflection of who they're around, right? Especially their friends. Obviously, there's nature and a nurture aspect of it, right? The way you're raised kind of dictates what friends you choose, right? And the friends you choose kind of chooses the way that you deal with society, and the way you deal with society kind of defines your character in a way, not in a whole sense, right? Because your character is very important. It's important to reflect it in a good way. And the Prophet ﷺ said that if you surround yourself around somebody that has is of good essence, right, or that sells perfume, you're gonna, even if you don't buy from their perfume and they're your friend, you're around them, you're gonna smell like that perfume. But if you are around, the Prophet ﷺ said, if you're on the blacksmith, I don't know if you guys know what blacksmith is, but people that make swords and there's smoke all around them. If you're around these blacksmiths and you don't buy from their inventory, even if you don't buy from the inventory, you're still going to smell like that smoke, and you're not gonna smell like very good in a way. And just to go finish off with the story, my sister actually she's always texting me about stuff to say sometimes, and she had a really good story to say from Prophet ﷺ. And just a summarization is that when one day when the Prophet ﷺ was walking back, and he saw an elderly woman holding her provisions, the Prophet, peace be upon him, went to her and asked, "Can I help you?" The old woman happily gave him his stuff, and he was carrying it back to her home. And the whole way she was bad talking the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, but she didn't know that it was him. The whole way she was saying, "Be careful, the man named Muhammad. He's a magician. He's a soothsayer. He's an evil person. He's spreading lies. He's a poet. He speaks very eloquently. He's tricky people. Be careful of him." And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "No, he's not. What are you talking about? You don't know what's." Oh, sorry. He didn't say that. He didn't say that part. Sorry. I was just told. Sorry. But then he was talking. It was called the whole way. They were. He took her to her home, and then the Prophet reached her home and with provisions down to her, and he's about to leave. She asked, "What's your name? I didn't even ask your name." And he said, "I'm Muhammad." And that's when the woman was talking about the whole way. She said, "Is that you? Like the person that she was talking about the whole time?" And on once, and she said basically she broke down in tears, and she felt sorry for what she said. So from this, she said, and she made her shahada on that day, even though she didn't like the Prophet ﷺ. I'm sorry, I don't know the story really accurately, so I'm here with my sisters obviously advising me what to say. But she said her shahada that day. She said, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah." I think it's very important for people to take criticisms, just as the Prophet ﷺ did. Imagine he was being tarnished by this woman. She was saying all the bad words about her. I mean, she was probably saying it because maybe she was in her heart. I don't know, but she might have been afraid to convert, maybe, or she might have been afraid to follow his path. But she kept on astaghfirullah, I think she was bashing the Prophet ﷺ with all these words, saying that he's a magician, saying he's a sooth. She said the worst of words. I don't think anybody in this day and age, any Muslim would say to the Prophet ﷺ. Or I hope not, but but she said all these words, and he did not react in any way. He helped her out. He didn't mind her saying anything. And when he got to her house and she asked for his name finally, and he finally gave her name. SubhanAllah, she gave her shahada that day.
SubhanAllah, man. Prophet emotional intelligence was there's no one who can. SubhanAllah.
There's a book about the emotional intelligence. I talk about it all the time. It's called With the Heart in Mind, by Sheikh Mikaeel Smith, and he has these workshops on YouTube and stuff like that as well. And they're so amazing. It's just a whole book talking about how his interactions with people were, how he would tailor his conversation, his criticism, the way he spoke, based off the person that he was talking to, and he did it with perfection. It's amazing.
Gotta put that plug inside the chat or inside Instagram or something, bro.
Yeah, we'll add it. That's a fire book. Highly recommend.
Something I want. What's up, Nadia?
I don't mean to interrupt. I said we get all these publishers owe us money because we out here just sponsoring them so hard.
I want 3 books of With the Heart in Mind. You hear me? I'm an at Mikaeel. Just kidding. Never.
Low key, Taha, you're still not done with that, bro. You're supposed to give it to Nadia. Nadia's supposed to give it to me, bro. What's wrong, bro?
This dude reads half a page every 2 months, bro.
We're getting
off topic.
What I wanted to mention, it was a common theme I think in the comments, and I think people mentioned, is self-reflection. And I think self-reflection is essential. How do we get better? How do we improve as people when we're not willing to accept our faults, when we're not willing to think and sit what do I struggle with? What do I need to improve on? And criticism is never going to be beneficial if we're not willing to like take it as like something that's going to benefit us. So I think like if to improve, to get better and grow as people, one, we need to like be willing to one, self-reflect, and that like that self-reflection sometimes comes after the that self-reflection sometimes comes after someone like gives that criticism, whether it's like good criticism or not. Like sometimes they do have a point, and you're gonna have to kind of get over that like desire to like fight back and just be like, all right, maybe they have a point, maybe I need to take this and accept it and kind of grow from it. Something I wanted to address Amar's question from earlier, like how do you like self-reflect and improve your character? I like whenever I listen to the Prophet ﷺ's life or like stories about him, I just think to myself like, what would I do? Like I'll give an honest honest response to what like I'll do in that specific situation. And most of the time it's like not like sometimes like I kind of struggle with like sometimes I'll have a bad temper, and I realize that and I acknowledge that, and I need to like for me to kind of grow from that, I need to look at examples that are better than me and kind of see those examples and grow from them and see how they reacted and then grow from them.
Big facts.
Yeah, absolutely, Taha. I mean, self-reflection is such a huge thing. And I love what you said is that you shouldn't be giving criticism.
Yeah, I think your voice is a little bit weird.
My voice is weird.
No, it's okay. I think it's fine. It's not
Just
like
talk up a little, because you're like a little muffled.
I'm muffled. Oh no, you guys, people don't want to hear what I have to say now.
I think as you get excited in your point, it'll like improve in quality. So it just keeps you.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to fix this, guys. Am I still muffled?
it's good. It's good.
You're good now. You're Gucci. You're Gucci, Luchi, Muchi.
Okay. So what Taha was saying about self-reflection is that is so important. I'm gonna ignore what Amna just said. Astaghfirullahalazim. All right. Anyways, so there was this one quote, and I was actually trying to look it up because I didn't want to misquote it, and I don't know who it said, but basically what it says is when you're Muslim and you walk into a room, assume you're the worst person there. And I know you're probably going to hear that you're like, wait, what the heck? But it's true, because the way they explained it was that younger people have been on this earth for a less amount of time, so they sin less. Older people have experienced more Ramadans and they prayed more than you. New Muslims have converted and their sins are wiped clean. And then the older Muslims, they probably have memorized more Quran, more hadiths, like they have more time to practice Islam. So where are you? Like, don't think of yourself as this high and mighty person. If someone is coming to you to give you advice, always try to think that, you know what, maybe they do want the best for me. That's what it is, because we shouldn't ever think that we are this high and mighty person. And I mean, I'm talking to myself first, because that's how we should be doing this or approaching this. I mean, what was it? I think it was was it Umar radiallahu? I believe it was him, that he would not move on to memorizing another Quran ayat until he practiced it himself, which is a huge thing. I mean, do not practice what you're gonna do not preach what you're not gonna practice. I
Practice what you preach.
That's so wrong. Practice what you preach. Thank you. I was struggling. English is my like 15th language. I'm kidding. I'm gonna excuse myself, so please go ahead. Continue, whoever was next.
I think with that, we're going to transition to our final topic of the day. And this kind of goes back into our actual title of the topic. It's like handling disagreements. A lot of times, like our friends, I guess we can call them friends, put us in situations where it's like either you're with me or against me, or there's like a difference of opinion in a matter, and you're like, yo, like you have to pick. And it's just like we're put into situations that we're not like comfortable being in, and that like is really difficult. Like, how do we handle those types of situations?
So within this, okay, so I wanted to address like the idea of rumors and stuff like that, but the way that the question was phrased, it's not really related to that. But
Had to go off,
sis.
Okay, so I'm sorry if this is like just a complete jump, but I think a very big problem in the Muslim community especially is the spreading of rumors. And the reason why it's such a problem in the Muslim community is because our communities are extremely tight-knit, right? We all know each other. We all know pretty much everything that the person has done in their life. And this is not a healthy thing, okay? This is not a healthy thing by any means. There were times where I've heard about, people that I know very, very well. I've heard things about them that were just appalling. You know what I'm saying? And even if I knew these people very, very well, you can't help but feel some sort of way or hold some sort of thought against them in the depth.
Subconsciously.
Yes, subconsciously. Thank you. Like no matter how well you know a person, if you're thinking about them, you're unfortunately going to have this belief about them, or subconsciously you're going to feel some way about them. So I think as Muslims, dude, we got to realize just how toxic and damaging we can be when we spread rumors about other people, man. Like I've heard rumors about myself that wallahi, like if I was to say on this like video call, you guys would be like, what the hell, man? Like I've heard rumors about myself that have no basis in reality whatsoever. And they came from people that I never met in my life, nor have I spoken to in my life. So why do we do this as Muslim people? Why are we spreading rumors about people? Why are we trying to bring other people down? Why are we trying to damage the reputation of certain individuals when our deen is the complete opposite of that? We should be, like Amna said, we should be repressing or hiding other people's things.
Yo, wait, Nadia, you cut off.
What's happening after?
Your volume is down.
Your volume just went.
Okay, go ahead.
I can't hear you at all.
Nothing.
Wait, try muting yourself and then unmuting yourself.
Try turning it on and off again. Sorry.
Okay, I think we just move on to the next person and
Wait, Nadia, talk.
But yeah, we can't hear you,
And
dude.
he was deep, but
No,
No,
I can jump back on.
What's up?
Oh, you're working. Oh my God, you're on.
You're a miracle worker.
I don't know what I did, but okay.
Can you guys hear me again?
Yeah.
Okay,
Go off before you cut off again. Go.
Okay, but I guess what I wanted to just, like, the last point that I wanted to say is, like, please be very, very vigilant in how you handle other people, how you handle other people's reputations. Like, I know people as well who heard something about someone that they don't know, and because of that false information, they refused to speak to that individual, or they had this preconceived notion that they were not willing to budge on. Like, dude, this is so harmful, so toxic. Please, man, please move on from this childish behavior, really, and let's be more mature and be more respectful to our fellow Muslim brothers.
No, I think you brought up like a really, really good point. Even though it is like you said, a little bit of a tangent, but I also wanted to kind of touch on the rumor aspect of this. I think that like if the rumors pertain to you, if the rumors are about you, then the last thing that you want to do is essentially like, oh, I'm sorry. If you are the one making the rumors, the last thing you want to do is like confront that person, tell them like, hey, like I'm the one that was spreading rumors about you. Or like if you heard the rumors being spread, I think like that's just like, I guess they say like, what's that saying? Twisting the knife. But there was a hadith, I can't remember exactly the details, but essentially what happened is that there was a Sahabi and somebody was bringing him news that like so-and-so was saying XYZ about you. And his response was very interesting. It was, he was basically saying like, what, like, are you like the messenger of the shaitan? Like, are you doing his work? Like, why are you coming and telling me this? I thought like that really stuck with me. I was thinking about that and I was like, oh my gosh, that's a really good point. Cause like personally, I have been like I have some experiences where people came to me and they were like, listen, I got to tell you something, like I've been spreading these rumors about you. And like after that, I was thinking to myself, like, why would they come and tell me that, Like what good is that going to come out of the situation? It's only going to make me feel, worse. It's not going to like better anything. There's no point in like bringing that up. And I think Nadia also mentioned this, but just it kind of, or in a certain way, like it makes you think about that person differently. I know you kind of said that, like if the rumor applies to you, but like it's also like the reverse. It makes you think about that person, like you kind of have like this tainted image of them, like at the back of your mind after that, regardless of what happens. But if you are like that person that's spreading rumors, something that I also want to kind of tie into this is just like the aspect of backbiting, which I know is like a little bit like I don't know if that's jumping a little off like the topic, but we all know like the other hadith about eating the dead flesh of your brother. I don't know if I phrased that correctly. It's an ayah, excuse me, not a hadith. But just
back, yo, it's an ayah. Chill out.
Bro, my mom's sister Aida down here. She used to teach us Salam, so that's probably no one. So it was good said. But anyway, we all know like that ayah. And sometimes like it's so easy to just fall into that and like join the conversation, be like, oh, like what's going on? I think we mentioned this in the previous episode about like Eid gatherings, like literally talking about others is like what the topic is in general. And so I feel like spreading rumors can be so easy, and we can easily like slip into that like bad habit. We really need to like stop ourselves and to not make like assumptions. And we also mentioned about Surat al-Hajarat was like kind of mentioned way back early at the beginning, about just having good mannerisms and not making assumptions about other believers. And it's honestly like what we learn in Core Academy is it's haram to like assume and jump to conclusions about people, and only like a correct person essentially like blasts people and it kind of exposes them and shames them in a way. So I think it's important to kind of bring that up before we talk about the actual differences of opinion. So
was it haram or was it makruh? Sorry, I don't want to be wrong, but was it haram or makruh?
Backbiting?
What? The what?
Not backbiting, but assuming what people are.
Assumptions?
Yeah. So ithm not is not haram.
Ithm is sinful. Ithm means you're getting.
I'm just making sure. Sorry, I'm just.
No, it's a good question.
Wait, okay. Can I just say one quick thing? I did not know that Aida was your mom. I am so sorry. I think I
know that.
No.
Yeah, I also referred to her as that, so I apologize in the comments, but I also want to apologize on this podcast.
Yeah, people here, we promise.
Yeah.
You guys said Aida, and I was like, wait, like you guys.
I'm sorry, we don't see titles, we just see the name. So if you have a title, we're so sorry. Well, we're just reading it straight off the comments.
I'm so embarrassed, bro. Wallahi, I did not know at all that was you. I apologize.
It's okay. I feel like relations, like I'm bad at that. Sometimes I find that I'm like, oh, you're like this person. That's all you.
Oh, you're a sheikh. That's all. But I kind of also want to address the rumors aspect. I know this isn't technically answering the question, but I think rumors are a huge part of disagreements. So kind of on the same boat as Nadia in terms of just a plethora of rumors that have been spread, unfortunately, and they have tarnished reputations, mine and others involved. But also I've been on the other end as well. And I've had experiences with people, and the thing is, like, these were people, and this is my fault. I think one thing we should all keep in mind is we shouldn't have people on pedestals, no matter how, nice or great or whatever they may be, no matter how on their deen they may seem, whatever it may be, we shouldn't have them on a higher pedestal, because sometimes we tend to neglect their flaws or their faults or their remarks, and we take it too much to heart. And like I said, I'm definitely was very much fault for that at one point. Hopefully I'm not anymore, but it has to happen in a while. So inshallah, it's not the case. But kind of like, they've said something about someone who I've just met, and I just believed it. I was like, this person's saying it, like, I trust this person. They're like, whatever, like, this great person and whatever, and then literally a year or two later, I'm talking to this person they talked about, and I was like, yo, you're nothing like that. Like, subhanallah, I'm so stupid. Like, I've been on the end where I have heard rumors about myself that I knew weren't true. Like, I've had people approach me and say, yeah, I remember people would tell me that you were like this, but then I got to know you and you're nothing like that. And I'm like, A, I didn't really need to know that, to be quite honest. And B, like, dang, I can't believe I just did exactly what used to bug me the most, when people would just automatically assume stuff based off of appearances or based off of what they had heard, And I think another thing to keep in mind is how to handle rumors. So to be honest, rumors take a huge toll on your mental health and your mental state. Like I've said, I've experienced, unfortunately, a significant amount of those. And at one point I had to sit down and be like, man, am I just a bad person? Like, what is, like, I remember I sat there and I was like, yo, like, I have tried so hard to fix myself, whatever it may be. And I just sat there and I was like, is it me? Like, at some point I have to ask myself, is it my fault? Are these rumors spread because I really am what they think I am, And I had to sit down and reevaluate. And eventually I realized, like, alhamdulillah, like, through people, whatever it may be, is that the people who are willing, I think it's important to realize the people who are willing to look past those false pretenses or those rumors they've heard to get to know who you really are good friends and good people you should keep. Like, if you are willing to look past these preconceived notions you've heard about someone to really get to know who they are, bro, you're a great person. And to everyone who's done that, mabruk to you, because that takes a lot to fully get to know someone on your own terms, because you don't care what others have said. So much respect for you. That's number one. Number two, also, there's so many like cliche quotes, so many cliche quotes I've heard, but I think one quote is like, you can be the this is such a this is, I'm sorry, this is a really weird quote, but I really vibe with this, maybe because I like fruits. But someone's like, you could be the sweetest, like juiciest, most ripest apricot in the world, but there's still gonna be someone out there who hates apricots. And that's true. Like you could be the best person, but there's still gonna be people like that, and there's not something you can control. Like not everyone's gonna like you, not everyone's gonna want to be your friend, not everyone's gonna want to get to know you. And you know what? That's fine. That's what's nice about having friends you can take constructive criticism from, and nice about having friends you can ask, like, yo, tell me my flaws so I can fix them. Because at the end of the day, if you're working to make yourself a better person, you are not a bad person. Like you are trying your best to be the best. And if someone can't see that, man, forget that. Like people are gonna spread rumors about that all the time. And just one more last thing, just to like end this whole rumor thing on my end, is that if you're spreading rumors, please like don't. Like as easy as that sounds. Like I remember just today I was reading this book about the people promised paradise, and Aisha radiallahu anhu came up, and the whole situation that happened when someone had spread a rumor about her having an affair with a sahaba, and that whole thing happened, and then like a month or so later the ayah was revealed in the Quran that about like talking bad, slandering, whatever it may, basically proving her innocence, right? And years later, like after Rasulullah like passed away and everything, like we're deep into like I believe like Umar ibn al-Khattab's caliphate and everything. Sahaba Ibn Abbas came to her, and he's like Aisha radiallahu anha, that's crazy. Like that one ayat that Allah did to prove your innocence is read in masajid all over the world. Like your innocence is strongly like proved. And you know what she said? She's like, to be honest, Ibn Abbas, I wish people would just forget it entirely. Like you can fix that rumor all you want, but at the end of the day, the best thing to do is just not spread it, because a rumor can be fixed, it can all be fixed, but there's so much that goes into it. It takes such an emotional toll on you. Like having people read that all over the world, bro. Like to this day, like that's subhanallah. Like her innocence was proven to the court. It's in the Quran, but she still said like, I just wish people forgot it. That's it. I just wish it was just forgotten, because no one wants to have that rumor still like even the slightest tang of it still there. So I guess that's all I want to say about that. Just don't spread rumors, and also like get to know people on your own terms. You won't regret it.
Definitely. I mean, just I have nothing else to say after what you guys said. Like I feel like you guys topped it off perfectly about like rumors and how to deal with them and everything. I just wanted to go back to that question, which was like how to deal with disagreement, right? How can we deal with somebody that disagrees with us, especially a friend, right? And I'm just gonna refer to what people were saying in chat, and they were saying, especially politics. Like, how can you like disagree with somebody on politics and still be someone's friend, right? And I feel like that first and foremost is very difficult. Just to have a friend that has different political views than you do, and stay friends with them. You can always disagree with them, but how do you know not to take things personal, like their views are personally, right? Like someone could be even of a different religion, or even like a different, like there's a lot of things that go into it. But how can you stay, friends with this person? It's very simple. You have to show your character and how you act in front of people, and you yourself, I feel like, will give your own credit towards what you say, and they will take more of what you say into consideration. So if you're someone's friend and they have a different political view than you do, maybe since you're such a great friend and you have such a good character, they'll take what you said into consideration, right? You can agree, but sometimes you can also like sacrifice your point of view to like kind of like, agree with them as well, and like kind of, go off of that. And some other things people were saying is like listening before talking. This is something very important. There's no elaboration for that. Like that's just simply plain and said. You have to listen before talking. Like a great someone that's great at speaking is someone that's great at listening, and that's very important. And then lastly, it said everyone has their difference, but I believe that respect is a huge factor. We should never bash each other. That spot on. Noel was like, I don't know if I said that right, but Noel said it so perfectly. And then Khalti Aida said conflict resolution is important. I mean, that's so weird to say Khalti Aida because my mom's name is Aida too, but Khalti Aida said conflict resolution is important.
That's pretty weird.
Yeah. Conflict resolution, that's tip top. One of the stuff that you gotta add on to how to deal with disagreement. Like if you don't know how to do conflict resolution, I mean, you're never gonna be able to agree to disagree. I think that was our title for this topic. Let me just toss it off to the next person.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made us with different skin colors we were born in different places. There's a reason for that. We are not meant to think the same way. We're not meant to do everything the same way. That's the beauty in how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. And I think that's something we need to keep in the back of our minds. So one thing about me that I don't know how many people know this, I have a lot of friends who are Trump supporters, and I live in Oshkosh, and people are like, wait, what the heck? How can you support them? And the way that I view it is that I ask them, well, why did you vote for someone like him? And then they tell me their reasons, and it's nothing that a lot of people will like jump to conclusions to, like they're racist, they're this, they're this. No, it's very situational stuff. And that's just a very extreme example I'm giving. And then when I talk to them, this is like the first time that Trump was elected. Oh, just kidding. He's not at a second term yet. I don't know what I'm thinking. Sorry. God, inshallah, he's not the second term. But anyways, what ended up happening was when I explained to them, like, you know what, this is the reason why me and other marginalized minorities don't like him, and explain it from our experiences, because you have to gain that respect first. I mean, one thing that's really hard for us, and I've noticed, especially among Muslims community, is that if someone disagrees with something like with Palestine, with Kashmir, with all these political things, we are so quick to snap and just be like, we're done with you. We're not even going to educate you. That is horrible and that is wrong. Okay. It's our job as Muslims to educate people. That's what we're meant to do. We're supposed to educate people through the way that we interact with the other people. And then once we build that trust, that's how we start educating them. That's how our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. He was so kind, and he already had that respect from people over there. You have to keep that in mind. Like, he didn't go to everyone and like, you know what, guys, you have to be Muslims now, otherwise you're going to hell and you're horrible. No, that's not how it was at all. And I really wanted to emphasize that, because this cancel culture, you know what, I'm going to say it, it's really prevalent amongst Muslims a lot. And it intertwines with a lot of nationality issues. And I don't want to get into that, but I wanted to mention that. And the last thing is that Muhammad Iqbal is one of my favorite poets, okay? And he said this quote, and then I pulled it up so I can say it exactly. And it says, be aware of your own worth. Use all of your power to achieve it. Create an ocean from a dewdrop. Do not beg for light from the moon. Obtain it from the spark within you. Okay, guys? What I'm trying to tell you guys is that you guys have the potential to be better within yourself. You don't need it from someone else. You can be better. You have it with you. Just make a lot of dua, forgive other people, and it's gonna be okay, inshallah.
Inshallah. Perfect point, Nadia. I wanted to just add one little thing. Someone, I believe it was Jenna Hamdan, she said, I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations about religion with my grandmother, who is Christian. I 100% respect her religion. You need to understand and listen to the other person. And this sort of goes back to the idea of giving and taking constructive criticism. We need to learn how to be able to discuss controversial / things that we may not agree with people. We need to learn how to have proper discussions with people about things that we may not agree with them. Okay, in our religion, our religion is like one of the most understanding religions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, La ikraha fi din. There is no compulsion in religion, right? Just because you believe in something doesn't mean that everyone else around you has to believe in that same thing. Just because you think that something is a certain way doesn't mean that everyone agrees with you on that as well, right? And I think this is something that we lack so sorely. We are not capable of having legitimate, productive discussions with people. We tend to just become either become offended or offensive right away, without really taking into consideration how other people feel. And this may be a little controversial, but like, I'll give you an example. Shia and Sunni, someone mentioned this in the chat. I have a few friends who are Shia. At first, I had such a great relationship with them. When I found out they were Shia, I started not liking them. But I told myself, how would the Prophet ﷺ act? And you look at the common ground instead of the differences. Now, of course, you should never dislike someone because they may believe in something that's different than you. That's so wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many people out there in the world who believe things that you may not agree with. So just come to the realization that the world doesn't revolve around you, and not everyone agrees with what you said, and be accepting of what other people's opinions are. So yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. That was cute. Sorry. I know you don't like that word. That was awesome, Nader.
That was very, very mashallah. Cutesy.
Can you change your name to That's Cute? Can you
I
change
can
your
say his name's That's Cute. I can handle that.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
Something I wanted to mention in terms of difference of opinion, I think it's really important that it takes, like, you have to take it upon yourself, set the standard for yourself that I'm going to lower myself in this disagreement. And once you do that, like, you'll start seeing things from like all angles, and it'll just be easier to handle. I've learned that a lot of times in disagreements, like, people will get heated. It's normal. It's like it's gonna happen, but people don't think straight when they're heated. If I'm having a disagreement with someone, most of the time I'll stop talking about it, rethink the situation, come back and handle them like with like better manners and like more cool. Like, even like I'll get into like debates with my mom, right? And I realized that, like, the way, like, for us to get somewhere properly, we have to stop that at the moment and come back to it later in a later conversation, because like I'm cool, she's cool, like then everything gets better after that. And it's just kind of the best way to, I think, personally handle it, just because if people are going to be angry, they're not going to be thinking straight. So yeah.
Taha, can I ask you a question, or just for everyone, because based off what you said? So I guess, how would you handle people who they have a bit of a short temper, no matter what? And it's anytime you mention that thing, they don't want to talk about it, but whatever that they're doing is very toxic and it needs to be addressed. But every time you do, they just can't handle it.
And I wish somebody answered this question. I need the same.
I need the answer to this, because I'm not, go ahead. I mean, you seem ready. I'm not Taha.
So I'm going to address Nadia's question. I keep saying address. Haha, Addy. Anyways, obviously something wrong with me. But I just want to answer Nadia's question before I jump into what I want to say. So we mentioned it a few podcasts ago, because people were asking about parents specifically, or how to like handle a parent. Like, you care for them obviously, but they do have that like low-key toxic behavior. And unfortunately that is the case. I know, like, someone mentioned it earlier too, like, all right, what do you do when like that person who's close to you or that family member is toxic? But in general, I think you need a lot of patience. Like, I have had experience with this. The family friend, just someone who's very toxic and who has not toxic, but they have a very short temper, and they're not willing to accept the fact that they also have flaws and mistakes, that they're not faultless. And unfortunately, sometimes it's your age, or the fact that you're younger than them, or the fact that you're too westernized to fully, appreciate that. So I think the best thing in that scenario is to have as much patience as you can, and talk to them in a very, very, very like extra careful manner, just to not push any buttons. But at the end of the day, if someone is so short-tempered and so unwilling to accept the fact that they have flaws, the best thing you can do is make dua for them, to be honest. Like, I think that's the only way to approach it at that point. You can bring deen into it, you can bring religion into it, but at some point they might still get mad because you're trying to imply they're not a good Muslim, or whatever it may be, or you're trying to imply you know more than them. Like, I've had experience with that, unfortunately, and the best thing I ever did was be like, okay, you know what? I tried, whatever it may be, and then I just made dua for them. And subhanAllah, if you are sincere in your dua, Allah will always guide them in one way or form, either back to your advice or to a better route that you didn't even think of. So I think that's honestly like the best approach to take, because you don't want to cross into that territory of constant argues, constant disagreements, constant fights. So like that's not like, and it kind of goes back to the hadith, like sometimes it's good to remain, sometimes the best thing to do is remain silent. And that is the case. Obviously, if there's someone who's very close to, like a family member, it's hard, which is why I think that dua, why dua is very crucial in that situation. So I kind of quickly want to go into like, I swear I'll be brief. I know I've been like talking quite a bit. I'm so sorry. I'm also very parched. But disagreements, I think a huge thing with disagreements is that, and I think Surf mentioned this earlier too, where we're kind of in this day and age where we always feel like we have to change someone, where we always feel like we have to fix someone's point of view, you know. And this is kind of addressing Amar's question too, like, you don't, you know, not even Amar's question, but like any question, especially with other religions, other sects, whatever it may be, your job isn't to change someone's perspective. That's not your responsibility. At the end of the day, it's not. Like, if you're just gonna sit there and you're gonna argue, not to that, this is the most annoying thing. Don't ever argue for the sake of arguing. If you want to talk, do it for the sake of listening to them, because you can tell when someone is talking, or you can tell when someone's not listening to you. They just want to argue and they want to say their point next, and you know whatever you're saying is going to fall on deaf ears. So one big, yeah, exactly, Mehdi's got it, goes one ear and out the other, you know. So when it comes to arguing or disagreements, whatever it may be, you need to be able to genuinely listen and keep in mind, your job isn't to change their perspective. You can't turn a Trump supporter into a Muslim overnight, you know. That shouldn't even be something you should be worried about. Like, you're doing what you can, you bring up your point, and khalas, if they take it, cool. If they don't, move on with your life. And quickly to address, like, you know, Amar's, you know, thing about the whole like Shia thing. First of all, I just want to say, like, I appreciate and respect the fact that you're able to publicly say that on a chat, because I do understand that comments like that may receive some negative backlash. So respect to you for even admitting that and being able to address it, because I think that takes a lot. Another thing to remember is that, you know, like, unfortunately, like, you're kind of instilled with this almost negative image of people who are not you, whether that be, you know, cultural, or whether that be based on your sect. So Sunni versus Shia, that's a huge situation. Um, and I think the important thing to recognize in that situation is that you are all Muslim at the end of the day. Basically, just, you know, what Nadir said, and what Zahra and everyone's saying, like, one ummah, one body. We already have so much hate against us Muslims. The last people we should be fighting against is each other. So I think that's a very, very, very important thing to emphasize, is that, you know, if you have that great relationship, it's like I said, it's not your job to dislike them, or your job to be like, man, I can't believe you're a different sect than me. Like, why aren't you my sect? That's not your job, bro. Just, if they had different points of views, as long as it's not imposing on yours, just respect them and be friends. What's so bad about that? Like, it's not even hard to be friends. It's not hard for us to be friends with non-Muslims. So why is it hard to be friends with Muslims with people who are Muslims sometimes, you know? Like, why do we get along with other religions more than we get along with our own people? You know, why do we get along with people who are super racist and are low-key inherently very xenophobic than we do with our own ummah? So, like I said, I appreciate you, of course, dropping that comment, because I think it takes a lot. But also, at the end of the day, like, we are one ummah, one body. Like, we had that on a shirt designed for MSA once. I can bring it out next ep, inshallah. But yeah, just wanted to.
Shout out to MSA UWM for this shirt, for this hoodie.
Okay, we're not vibing with UWM here, buddy. Like,
to address Nadia's question real quick, I know we're getting kind of close to being late, but I think it's really important to find out what works for different people, and it takes a lot of trial and error, but I think that's essential to find out, like, how to communicate with people, how to help people grow. I've noticed in my personal interactions, like, you just have to kind of keep trying, and not like keep trying in a way that's annoying, just like keep trying in a way where, like, people start like listening more. And it's pretty tough and it's time consuming, but I've personally had good success with it. And then making sure people know that whatever you're saying is like truly that, like, you really want like the best for them. And then if you keep going down that path, like, there isn't good at the end of the path. And I feel like doing it in a vulnerable way kind of helps the situation. So yeah, that's just it.
Thanks, guys, for answering my question, because I was curious on how you guys handle this situation, because I basically do what Amna said, is just make a lot of dua for them. It's sometimes like sometimes it doesn't feel like it's enough, you know, just being straight up. But thank you, guys.
Yeah, you brought up a good question, and I think that Amna and Taha had like a good thing to say about it. You guys bring up like really good points. But I guess to kind of like go off of what Nadia said earlier in terms of how you essentially can't control others, you can only control your own actions. I was kind of reminded of a story which might seem at first like it doesn't necessarily connect to the topic, but I think it does in a sense. So essentially what occurred, I know we're running out of time, so I'm just going to quickly summarize it. There were two old men and they were traveling, and they reached kind of like crossroads, but I think they like saw some people ahead of them or something like down the road. But they essentially were thinking to themselves, okay, like they're both blind. I don't know if I already mentioned that, but they're two old blind men. And they thought, okay, like if we go together on one road, like the two people like standing at the end or whatever might like make fun of us, and like they're gonna get some bad deeds because they're backbiting or whatever. And so what they did is that they actually decided to each take like two different roads, which is kind of like ironic because that was like the flyer for this episode. But anyway, they took two different roads. And essentially, like I kind of thought that was very interesting because they literally went out of their way just so that like people didn't talk badly about them, which of course, like going off of what Amna again and Nadia were saying, you obviously can't control what other people end up doing, what other people like, what they think, their actions just in general. But I think it's also important to just kind of quickly mention before we wrap up is the fact that you can control like what you do, which can kind of seem like it doesn't necessarily connect to the aspect of like rumors and everything, but I just think it is like something that's I just kind of thought, oh gosh, it's gonna really, I can't talk. I should share that story because it was really interesting, and just the fact that you can still have people's best interest in mind.
Jazakallah khair. We're getting super late, so we'll start concluding, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, everyone, for tuning in. This is a longer episode, but I think there was so much to cover that was beneficial for all of us. So we tried doing that as best as we could. I think just to kind of summarize a little bit, what kind of we talked about, I think we really need to kind of improve our game of giving criticism, being able to kind of tailor that criticism to the person's needs, and also being able to take criticism, because we need to be able to like reflect and be better people and grow, and just it's necessary. So that's kind of the like summary of what we talked about. Jazakallah khair, everyone, for coming. I think something that we're trying to do from now on is finishing off our sessions, our episodes with dua. So I'm going to make a quick short dua. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. Ya Allah, allow us to be vulnerable in front of you. Ya Allah, allow us to be self-reflective. Ya Allah, allow us to strive to be better people always. Ya Allah, allow us to be people that want to be the best versions of ourselves. Ya Allah, allow us to be respectful in our interactions. Ya Allah, allow us to see the best in people. Ya Allah, allow us to not make judgments of other people. Ya Allah, only you can judge us. Ya Allah, allow us to be people that are striving to be the best people that we can be. Ya Allah, allow us to be reunited with the Prophet ﷺ in Jannah, Ya Allah, in all of our family members, Ya Allah. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursaleen, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Jazakallah khair, everybody. Like, subscribe, share. Next episode is coming on Saturday night, inshallah. Hope to see you all there. Jazakallah khair for tuning in. Peace out.
Also, a quick reminder, Mehdi's interview is tomorrow on IG Live, so check it out.
So I may or may not do that. It's debatable. Because, it's Ramadan, no music, but I might do without, I don't know.
Okay, well, we're just gonna, bye guys.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.